strikes, he has a kill list that every Tuesday he makes a determination on what names that have been provided to him by U.S. intelligence agencies, primarily the CIA, but with input from the national security agencies and others, of which person who's on this list is going to be killed by the United States. And he looks at, what the description is that the intelligence agencies have given him about that person, what they have done to deserve to be assassinated, to be executed. So we have a situation now where our President of the United States has now become the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, and essentially the executioner of how many people? Well, the estimates, we have firmer estimates on the number of people killed in Pakistan, because there are two investigating organizations that have been working in Pakistan to get this information. And the statistics are anywhere from 2,600 to 3,200 people have been killed by these drone strikes. Not that the President of the United States authorized by name for each one of those people, but he does have a list of by names people that he uses every week, that he makes a determination on who the CIA is going to be going after. And the issue of well, our military is very well, how many of you all been in the military before? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, our military says we try very hard to limit the casualties, that we are very precise in what we do, that we are very accurate in our missile systems and firing systems are very accurate. But have any of you all who've been in the military ever been around some of the things that weren't quite so inaccurate and didn't quite do what they were supposed to do, these weapon systems? And in fact, that's what's happening with these drones, that the operators of the drones, who are not necessarily sitting even in the country where the drone strikes are taking place. That's another interesting phenomena about all these drones, is that for the military, the majority of the drones, like 99% of the drones that are operated in Afghanistan, which are operated by the U.S. Air Force, the operators, the people that manually fly those things, are not even in Afghanistan. They're back in the United States. They're back in places like Creech Air Force Base, just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. They're at Hancock Air Base in Syracuse, New York. They're at Whiteman Air Base in Missouri. They're actually now Beale Air Force Base, California. We now have drones and drone operations that are going from virtually every Air Force base that we now have in the United States. And just a couple of months ago, there was an article in the Honolulu paper saying that at Hickam Air Force Base, that they will now be having some sort of an operational system that will be at Hickam Air Force Base, that drones will be controlled, some drones somewhere. And the article didn't say where the drones would actually be that are being flown by people that are sitting in Hawaii. The people that are operating these drones now are numbering more than, or we're training now, more drone operators than we are fixed-wing pilots for our U.S. Air Force. That's how big the drone program is now getting in our U.S. military. It's the growth industry. It's the latest, greatest weapon system, the greatest toy, you could almost say. I mean, that's kind of a offhanded way of describing a very lethal weapon system, and it really shouldn't be described that way. But when you really look at how it's operated, it's almost like a game. You know, the people that operate these sit in a game room. They sit in a console. They have computer screens, kind of like what you do at home. How many of you all do war games and at home? You know, you see these games that are on your computer, and you fire weapons at people from your home screen. You know, the games of how many people can you kill. Well, this is tragically a real-life version of this, where every day in many U.S. military bases in the United States, we have men and women who are operating these drones, who are firing these drones in Afghanistan. And for the CIA, they're firing them in Pakistan. And then in Somalia and in Yemen, it may be a combination. There may be CIA drones, there may be U.S. military drones that are being operated in Somalia and Yemen. There are over 500 companies in the United States that are getting involved in the biggest, newest weapon system that the U.S. government has. 500 companies that are building drones and drone parts. And the drones will be anywhere from the size that you saw of the Predator drone to a much larger drone called a Global Hawk that has a wingspan almost twice as big as what the Predator has. And it can stay aloft for like days and days and days at a time. It's a surveillance vehicle. It's not weaponized. These drones are being made in large numbers, and they're becoming part of the U.S. weapon systems that we sell. You know, President Obama just right before the election said that he wants to make sure that our weapons industry continues to export, and that he hopes that we'll be able to export another 30% higher than what we did last year. That's the legacy of what the United States is doing around the world. We're exporting arms. We are the largest weapons exporter in the world, and drones are now part of this. Drones are now part of it. The United States just sold $1 billion worth of drones to NATO countries. We're not the only country that does this. I mean, Israel is the second largest maker of drones and seller of drones, and they just sold $100 million worth of drones to Russia. Now, what do you think the Russians are going to do with these drones? A lot of which are weaponized. What are these drones, the weaponized drones, being used for?
Chechnya and the Caucasus.
Yeah, Chechnya and the Caucasus. To go into areas, to go to Chechnya and the Caucasus areas where there are groups of people that are challenging Russian sovereignty over their areas. These are very easy weapon systems for us in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, and the rest of the world sees them too. And those groups that want to have the ability to operate without having their own military in danger, so to speak, and yet they want to be able to fire from afar, these weapons are saying, "Oh, the United States does that. Look what they're getting away with." And so we want to do the same thing. Other places in the world where these have been used, the United States has used drones in the country of the Philippines. 3 years ago, in cooperation with the Philippine military, the United States, or the Philippine government, the U.S. Sent some Predator and Reaper drones into the Philippines, and they killed 15 people that the Philippine government wanted killed. Pakistan are all these between 2,600 and 3,200 people. They're not all civilians. According to our list right here, on Pakistan it says that, let's see, the number of civilians reported killed between 473 and 889. Okay, that leaves, gosh, 2,200 people that they're categorizing as militants. Militants. Now, what would a militant be?
Well, from the government, anyway, any male under the age of 14, right?
Yeah, there we go. The comment was a militant would be someone that the government doesn't like what they're either saying about the government or what they're doing in opposition to the government. And in Pakistan, the United States now says that there are certain categories of people that are immediately suspicious to us, that they are, they could be harmful for, let's see, United States interests, but not, now let's see, the United States interest in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. Well, they say that these people could go across the border from Pakistan into Afghanistan, and therefore they could then there in Afghanistan be harmful to U.S. military that are how do you characterize who we are there? Are we invaders? Are we occupiers? Are we the benevolent people? I mean, it really does depend on your point of view. And if you're an Afghan with the history of Afghanistan of sending out virtually every foreign invader that's ever come in, that there may be some people who say, we don't want you there. In fact, there are lots of people in Afghanistan that are saying that. I just came back from Afghanistan in December after another visit there. And while there are a lot of people who say we're glad the U.S. is there, there are plenty of people who are saying, no, we don't want you there. You need to get out of here. There are plenty of people in Pakistan who are challenging the Pakistani government, and who the Pakistani government would just as soon see out of the way. And so the United States is actually doing the dirty work, so to speak, for the Pakistani government, and using these drones to kill certain categories of people. One of the categories is if you're a male that is old enough to grow facial hair and to wear a turban, then you become a target. You can become what's called one of the signature targets of the United States. That the signature of the target is that it's a male, old enough to grow facial hair and have a turban. Now that is a huge amount of the population of the tribal areas of Pakistan. So virtually any of these guys can be considered to be targets of the United States, and particularly if they happen to be riding a motorcycle or be in a vehicle that's driving in a place where the United States military, the CIA says, there shouldn't be these type of people there. So we have ended up killing a lot of Pakistanis, and a lot of Pakistanis whose families say they had nothing at all to do with any sort of actions against either the Pakistani government or the American government. And as one could imagine, the numbers of people in Pakistan who are outraged by the deaths of their fellow Pakistani citizens is high. In fact, the numbers are about 95%. In the polls that are being taken now, 95% of the people of Pakistan are furious with the United States with these drone programs. I was in Pakistan myself in early October of this year. 32 of us from the United States went to Pakistan on the issue of drones. We wanted to meet with families of that had people in their family that had been killed by these drones. We wanted to hear ourselves what they had to say, and we talked to probably 50 people whose family members had been killed. The majority of them, a great majority, said no, they had nothing at all to do with any sort of militant activities. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Tim was, I don't think, is this on?
No, it's not. Yeah. Flashlight. It's just a light.
Well, I'll tell you, he was saying that you may be having trouble hearing in the back. If you are, if you'll please just move down forward. I'm not going to just yell to the back, but there are plenty of seats down here, so. Okay, well, I'm just going to wander around things. But if anybody's having trouble hearing, please just move on down, okay?
Air conditioners.
Yeah, the air conditioner's on. I think we want to have that on. I want to talk about also we were mentioning President Obama has this Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday list of people that he is going to consign to death by drone. You know, until the Carter administration, let's see, yeah, since '76, I guess it was was that the Ford administration?
Yes.
Ford, yes. Yeah, under Ford, President Ford. It's illegal to assassinate people. Now, because during the United States and CIA had been assassinating a lot of people during the Vietnam War and earlier. And finally it got so bad that finally the U.S. government said we can't assassinate any more people, except now we're doing that. And we are even assassinating American citizens. President Obama has authorized the assassination of, well, actually, he authorized the assassination of 2 American citizens, but 3 ended up being killed. And they're all 3 from Yemen. 3 Americans that were in Yemen. One of them was what's called a radical cleric, a guy who grew up in New Mexico. His father still lives in New Mexico. He was upset, Anwar al-Awlaki. He was very upset with U.S. policies. He was upset with the invasion and occupation of Iraq and of Afghanistan. And he went to Yemen, which was the home country of his father, and decided to start calling for jihad against the United States. And the United States government decided that was all that was needed. I mean, that's a lot. But that was the decision of the President of the United States, that he should be killed for calling for jihad against the United States. And let's see, did anyone hear his calls for jihad? Well, actually, there were a few, or at least our government says there were a few. They attribute the Major Hassan, the U.S. Army major who killed, 30 people in Fort Hood, Texas, that he had listened to al-Awlaki. So the United States started targeting al-Awlaki. They missed him twice. His father, who was still in New Mexico, said, "Now wait a minute. If you've got some evidence that my son has committed a crime against the United States, don't you kind of need to take him to court? Don't you need to have the judicial arm of our government look at the evidence that you have and see if that comports to what is a crime, and let a jury decide if he's guilty, and then they declare the punishment?" Well, while a court case was filed in federal court exactly like that, the father of al-Awlaki and the Center for Constitutional Rights in New York City, who said, yeah, we should not be having these targeted killings. And so they put in a federal court case, and before the case was even heard, the United States struck again. And this time they were successful. And the United States of America, on the orders of the President of the United States, executed extrajudicially an American citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, and also a second young man, a journalist, an American journalist, who was with al-Awlaki at the time, Salman Khan. And in Yemen at the time was al-Awlaki's son, 16 years old. And 2 weeks later, the United States of America assassinated the son, the 16-year-old son of al-Awlaki.